and then they get started again and somebody else would get COVID.
Turns out that happens.
I've heard.
Yeah, you'd never know it.
Fantastic.
All
We've
the
tried
government's
nothing,
fault.
we've tried nothing, we're all out of ideas. Not
They
Alaska.
were running 90% last month, and then they told us that this month, 90 to 100% the entire month of
Oh,
March
that's so
occupancy.
great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Fantastic.
March
Yeah,
is such
for
a nice
this-
time down there
For
too.
this, oh yeah, because there are ski resorts, of course.
Ski resort, but
I think we're gonna take our visitors to Seven Glaciers on Friday. I haven't been there in years,
nice.
but just to ride, just the view alone. That's supposed to be
So-
nice.
Yeah, so there's the Boartide restaurant up there now.
Yeah.
The what?
It's on the end of Glacier Express. It's called Boartide.
Okay.
So they built a bar there near the sun deck, just inside.
So that's where you could go just hang out and have a drink
You
and
could have a
stuff.
drink, you sit
So
outside,
he's
You don't wanna
heard,
do the
yeah.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
and they have food, so.
So you
Yeah.
must have been on the way.
It's much better than the cafeteria
Yeah.
type setup they used to.
Yeah.
So which is the like
I didn't
fancier?
realize that.
Seven
place.
Glaciers
Is the-
is the Four Diamonds, AAA rated diamond. Boartide is somewhere between Seven Glaciers and the Aurora Bar, and that it's nice food. It's very nicely done. They've got like these river rock columns set inside of like a kind of a gridiron. So it's kind of that engineered, natural beauty. Oh, during that period, they had a unscheduled closure.
17. I'll go ahead and call it to order.
Make sure they can hear us.
Thank you all. I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly. This is the first in a series of ARPA investment review work sessions. It is on tourism. And today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. We are noticed from 2:15 to 3:45. Ms. Camacho or Ms. Ross, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. LaFrance?
Here.
Mr. Costa?
He is excused.
Ms. Allard?
She is excused.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here, so we're not using the microphones then?
As long as they can hear us
Okay,
there, and we'll find,
well, I'm here.
I assume they'll speak up if they can.
Just go down the dais. Wow.
Oh, I never think about the diet. Here, I'm gonna go with this. Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Presberdia? Ms. Valatel? Ms. Kennedy? Mr. Rivera?
Present.
Mr. Littleton? Repeat that one,
Yes, yeah.
I think you got everyone.
So is there no one on?
And actually, I'm sorry, it was suggested to me to do a sound check first and a phone check. Is anyone on the line? Do we have anyone?
I have Claire and Desiree is the only two, and then Eric in the back of the room.
Okay.
We've got one person who's calling in.
Okay, I see them up there.
Interesting.
So we can just pause a moment as they come online.
This is our first in-person work session in months.
In a while.
Yeah, other than like a specific committee. So
Yeah.
people are probably adjusting.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Can everyone in the room hear me okay? Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you to Visit Anchorage for hosting this roundtable on Anchorage tourism. Earlier today, with my colleagues, Assembly members Dunbar and Quinn Davidson, we announced a new economic vision for Anchorage called A New Day for Anchorage. As Assembly members, we are committed to the economic health and development of our community, and we believe that we have a bright and exciting future ahead. We have a vision for Anchorage, one where everyone has a safe and comfortable place to call home, where there is an abundance of opportunities for workers, where local businesses are thriving, where new industries and businesses can find a place to succeed, where vibrant arts and culture are all around us, and where residents are proud of their community and invest to stay for the long term. That is why we're launching a new day for Anchorage, and there are flyers available here in the room. This is our plan to kickstart the economy and energize our community. A new day for Anchorage promises to develop our small businesses and workforce, support our families, build our infrastructure, and make government work for you. One of the first steps of the plan will be to distribute a new round of federal economic aid that is coming this spring. The Assembly used the last round to help many businesses and organizations across our community, including in the tourism industry, as we did with the CARES Act funds and the first tranche of ARPA funds, where former Chair Rivera hosted a series of work sessions where we asked for community input and then later reviewed the process and outcomes for how funds have been used. We're doing this again. To prepare for this next round, we wanted to hear from different grant recipients and local businesses to hear how past funds were used and what your plans are for the future. With that, I will hand it over to Visit Anchorage Executive Director, Julie Salvi, to do introductions and get us started. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. And I didn't realize we had the honor of being the first in-person event. And thank you for joining us at the Denina Center. We like to show off this building anytime we can. So my name is Julie Salvi with Visit Anchorage, CEO. With us from our staff here is David Kasser, right next to me. He is the Senior Vice President of Sales. His job includes sales not only for meeting planners, but also travel trade. So he works with travel agents, tour operators, those type of folks year-round, wherever we can find them. Down next to David is Jack Bonney. He's our Director of Community Engagement. And he also works our government relations issues with us. Next to him, Gretchen Keim, our Executive Assistant, who troubleshot all of the technology here today. So we're pleased and happy for her participation. Next to her, Angela Johnstone, who is our Controller. And across the table, we've got Cathy Dunn, who is our Vice President of Communications. She does all of our collaterals, works with media when they're in town, travel journalists, and does all of our messaging, website, advertising, busy lady, and manages, both she and Jack manage our research programs. And then next to her is a member of our board of directors, Angie Oberlintner, who's got Alaska Step-On Guides, and she was a recipient of one of the tourism business grants, so we thought it would be great to have her in the room today as well. And should I just...
And let me just note that Member Kennedy is on the line.
Oh, great.
And she has joined by phone. The YouTube feed may not be up yet.
Oh, okay.
So we'll take a look at that.
Okay. So, yeah, is she able to hear us? Did she?
Crystal, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I don't know if you can hear me, but yes.
We can.
Loud and clear.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
Wonderful.
With that pause, that anticipation, will the technology work?
So, again, thank you. We've got a very short presentation. We did have a chance last August to get in front of most of the assembly. I think most of them were there. We had a work session, and at that time we were in the middle of implementation of the ARPA marketing funds. And so we shared a fair amount about what we were doing with the funds. So we'll review that pretty quickly. If you've got questions, please ask. And then what we'll get into more now that we've closed out the year, to talk a little bit about the results and the outcomes of the spending that we did, and also talk about the business tourism business grants, and then flow into kind of current projections, what we're expecting for this year, and also talk about your second disbursement or your next disbursement of the ARPA funds. So with that, I will just jump in first. I love this, and when we get to the very end of it, I think that you actually hit all the things that were on our recommendations for the upcoming ARPA disbursement, so we'll get to that soon. But so during our work session in August, as I said, we went into depth on the scope of the work that was done both on the CARES Act and the ARPA to promote Anchorage as a destination when the time was right. And as I said, we won't go into extreme detail, but I do want to begin with a very tangible element, and that is the neighborhood guide, which you all got a copy, and I recognize, I think this is the second copy you've received, but we are really excited to have the chance to develop a new guide, and it's been very well received already. We made 80,000 copies of this neighborhood guide. The intent is to distribute it not only to our visitors, but also to residents. This is really more toward residents than we've been in the past. And not only did the ARPA funding fund this, it also funded a much needed staff position to help develop new content. So that position helped develop all the content you see in this guide, but also new content for our website, for our many different newsletters to different audiences, as we're working with journalists to develop content for them. The needs of content just never stop. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about what this guide has done already. The other thing that you have in front of you, and should also be at least the second copy that you've received, is our more traditional visitors guide. And thanks to the ARPA funding, we were able to significantly discount advertising to visitor industry businesses again, so that they could be in this. In fact, we didn't charge for advertising unless somebody wanted to increase their ad size or get something brand new, and then it was severely discounted. As a result of that, we actually were able to add, I think it was 4 new pages, Cathy? Yeah. 4 new pages, which allowed us to add new content to this as well. And this was 350,000 copies. This is really our workhorse, and we mail these out in advance of someone's visit to Anchorage so that they can plan additional activities, additional nights, additional time while they're in our city. And then we also, of course, use this at all of our information centers. So we're proud of both pieces, and they both are serving unique audiences. And both of those happened in the past year because of the ARPA. I don't know that we would have been able to do either of those without the funding that you provided. So that was extremely helpful. And at the August session that we had, we also shared early indicators of how 2021 we thought was shaping up. And we were pretty optimistic at that point. And I'm pleased to say that those initial indicators were right. 2021 was a giant step forward, up from the depths of the pandemic and up from what we endured in 2020. So as I said, what's new today is that we're able to share a more complete picture of the outcomes of the ARPA work and the full year results for 2021, and share some of the final products like I just shared. And then we'll also do indicators for 2022 and where we think we are right now. So first, I want to talk about the returns from the investments of CARES and ARPA round 1, the $1 million from ARPA for marketing and promotions that we received in 2021. And it's hard to not also talk about the $2 million that we received from CARES the year before. But we were able to initiate national advertising campaigns, and in fact, to a level and at times of the year that we've never been in the market before. And that was important. As booking windows change, we have a different need and a different, people are looking to research, to book, and to plan a trip. And so it provided some unique opportunities and tests for us that Cathy's excited because we have new ways as we move forward to figure out how to meet new markets and meet the changing market. I mentioned the Neighborhood and Visitors Guide. We were able to accomplish a website overhaul that was followed by a web usability study that provided us really great information. Mostly it confirmed that the changes we had made were really successful changes. You were able to provide staff hours, particularly for David's department, our sales department, to continue getting in front of travel agents, to get in front of tour operators, and then also hours in our communications department for web work and social work and working with journalists. And speaking of journalists, we did a fair amount of media hosting, given, you know, the where we were and travel guidelines last year. Between June and September, we hosted or assisted 14 journalists, and the resulting articles had a combined reach of over 237 million people, so we see that as a really big success. We were able to obtain additional photo and video assets that have been used already and will continue to be used for years. Particularly, we're now focusing on more winter assets. At the time, we needed some more, you know, images of people in masks, because one of the things visitors want to know is that during the depths of, say, Delta, that we were being responsible as a community. And so that was important to acquire some additional images that shared that. And then one of the probably the least exciting for us, but most important to a lot of people in our community, was the ability to cover the costs and maintenance of public restrooms in the Egan Center over the course of the summer, which normally that cost is borne by the cruise industry, who have hospitality rooms in the Egan Center, but because we had 0 cruises last summer, those restrooms were going to be closed and the building was not going to be open. So that was important for the visitors who did show up.
Julie, can I
Yeah.
pause for a
Yes,
second? Could
please
you
do.
reiterate that? You saying that was ARPA funds that directly went to subsidize the bathrooms
Keeping
in
the
the Egan Center?
restrooms open at the Egans. It was $73,000.
It's a great example of, like, that's exactly the kind of thing we wanted to do.
Yeah. Yes,
Thank you.
it was valuable. Like I said, we weren't as excited about it as we were about marketing funds, but
I
we
was
knew
very
it was a
excited.
need.
Yeah,
David was
we should
excited.
have hung a sign, like, this opportunity to use the restroom provided
Brought to you
by
by the municipality.
Municipality of Anchorage.
So, I'm gonna switch gears just a moment and talk about the tourism business relief grants. I'm gonna put Angie on notice. I'll probably ask you to say a couple of words in a moment. But the whole program, when combined with the CARES funds, was $10 million, which was fantastic and was needed. I want to share that the whole program, through those 3 rounds, provided relief grants to 283 businesses and dispersed more than $9.8 million to local businesses in tourism. And if you look at the federal government, the Treasury guidelines, in the eyes of the federal government, they were all small business, but I think we have a different definition of small business here. I can tell you that 75% of the recipients were businesses that had an annual gross revenue receipts of under $1 million. So even for us, the majority of the tourism business relief grants made its way to very small businesses, a lot of independent businesses, taxis, Uber, Lyft drivers. We really heard from the whole of the community when we put this program out. And if a word cloud captured all of the responses that we got when we were able to provide information, congratulations, you qualify for one of these grants. Thank you and wow were the words that really came to the top of the word cloud. And I do want to be clear that we worked very hard throughout the whole process to be clear that these stemmed from a municipal grant, that it was from the municipality of Anchorage and not from Visit Anchorage, that we were really the implementer and not the provider. And we feel like that message was received by the people who received the grants. So
Thank you for doing that, though. I know that
It
for a
was-
while, trying to figure out the best way.
Yeah.
and
it was something, you know, not in our normal wheelhouse, and it was a ton of work. And I should say we had a team of 5, Jack and Angela were very instrumental in making that happen. A team of 5 internally, but we also had 6 community members from other granting organizations or representing small business expertise who were super helpful. So we did all the vetting and kind of the sleuthing internally. We made recommendations to this panel who made the final decisions. And yes, it was very rewarding, but it was daunting for a moment there. I wanted to read a couple of direct quotes and then see if Angie might chime in too. So from one of the recipients, this grant program has been amazing. Another one, this is fantastic news. Thank you for all the hard work to support our community. Another, thank you guys very much. We really appreciate the support, and this will really help us out as our industry gets back on its feet and starts heading towards normal. We sincerely want to thank whomever was involved in the decision-making process. And finally, these funds will really help the business after 2020. But I think Angie represents one of the smallest businesses.
Yes, I was going to say, but I'm in the under million by a long shot. So I've actually been in the industry for a long time. I started out, I think about 23 after graduating from college, and I did a real big variety of jobs within the industry, and then kind of launched out on my own in 2005 and slowly have grown a pretty, solid business for myself. And I employ a few different guides depending on the need that we have during the summer. So it can be anywhere from 5 to 50 depending on what we're doing in a given month. But we run pretty slim, and so when we get to the end of January, there's not a whole lot there. We budget, to cover our basic expenses, but in 2020, that year, we didn't even cover those because we started out slim, and so we kind of go into a little bit of, debt to be able to pay for some of those insurance and permitting and, the licensing and the marketing that all goes into that. And so in 2020, we made literally like $1,000 that year. So it was really painful. Had to not hire any guides. I needed a reservationist. So we, came out of my own funds in order to be able to move business from 2020 to 2021 and just keep track of who was canceling and who was maybe coming, and then nobody came pretty much. So by the end of 2020, we were, thinking, well, how much more in debt personally can I take? And in order to see us through, if we aren't a part of Visit Anchorage, we don't get a lot of marketing out there. It's one of our only, that's pretty much who we belong to. It's been a huge benefit to us and has grown our business pretty much. That's it. We are word of mouth and Visit Anchorage. And so we were just huge. I was so relieved to get the money. It paid for past debt for both the licensing and insurance. It allowed us to get back on our feet, to be able to actually get up and serve people in 2021. And honestly, we weren't really sure if that was even going to work out, but it sustained us through that period of time where we were still in question, were people going to come? And then as far as the marketing goes, boy, did they come. And so that really, we made it into 2021 and we started taking a lot of bookings, and we were seeing that, wow, this might actually be okay for us. We do a lot of independent travelers. We don't rely as much on the cruise ships, although we do quite a bit. When they come, it's just in big chunks, but we see individual visitors that come into Alaska on a daily basis. So we do meet and greets at the airport, and we take those people on a personal tour usually. And so that was weird in 2021. People didn't want to get in the car with us. So we had to develop walking tours, and we ended up driving to different places to meet up with the guests. It helped us to purchase, masks and tests and just kind of go with the flow of what individual clients needed. And so without that money, I'm not sure we would be sitting at the table today. So to you guys, thank you. To you guys, thank you for making it easy. It wasn't a complicated process to get on and apply. And I really was expecting a lot more difficult bureaucracy to get any of that, but it was pretty solidly easy to get through. And so we would not be at the table today. I would not be at the table today, most likely, at least not in the situation that we're in looking towards 2022. So my appreciation to all of you.
That's wonderful.
Thank you, Andy.
Absolutely.
I'm like stressed out now as you went through that story. I hadn't heard it all before.
Yeah,
so.
it was pretty
Wow.
hairy there for a while. We were like, oh.
Yeah, and those are, as you know, the
It's a
type of
small business. That's how it
decisions,
goes.
Yeah, that our members were facing and our businesses were facing. So
Yeah.
thank you for being here and sharing, and
Absolutely.
also for your support. I didn't
Yeah.
didn't expect the marketing shout out. So
Well, I was really surprised. I mean, the phone started ringing and we were, and honestly, a lot of our businesses that we take business from, so our tour operators that we service, switched gears in the middle, and where they would normally be serving groups up, they were calling us, can you do this one tour? Can you do this family tour? Can you do this group of just 5? Can you know, what can you do for us? They don't want to be in a car. And so we really became very diversified. We are walking tour guides. We are, we're in the development of an app, and we were able to customize that for some clients. So it gave us a lot of opportunity to figure out what would work to save our business.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the independent traveler really found us last year. And, we've been talking about trying to attract more independent travelers for forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is, do you think we're going to continue to get the independent travelers, or are we going to go back to more of the cruise-based tourism here in Anchorage, or is there going to be a mix, or do we know?
I'm happy to tell you on our end, I think that we've captured both. I don't know that that's in 2024 that we'll be talking about the same thing, unless we continue to do some marketing to that particular group. But now we're at the top of everybody's mind. It's easy to get here. It's feels safe. You're not going to be out of the country in order to, something happens. So right now that marketing worked really well. So as far as 2022 goes, we look really solid. 2023, we have some bookings, and 2021, we had a kind of a conglomerate of what missed out on 2020 that came, and also the 2021. So at this point, I feel like what we're doing is working in the market because our bookings are really strong. I don't know that if we go, I don't know what happens if we let up on that.
Thank you.
can I continue then? Thank you. And I would concur that I think we'll see a really strong mix of both. And what is hard for us to parse out is oftentimes when people first start thinking about coming to Alaska and they start doing research and they're like, I'm not a cruise person, I'm gonna just go to Alaska by myself. And somewhere along the way between inspiration and booking, they either decide, wow, it's a lot of work to figure this out by myself, or I want to go to all the same places that the cruise lines are going. And Southeast particularly is difficult to do as an independent. And so somewhere along the line, a lot of those people who think they're going to be independent end up being a cruise passenger. So what's hard for us to parse is the success we had with independence. Would that have been different had the cruise lines been out actively marketing and selling? Or are we raising the tide for all visitors? We've always focused on the independent visitor because the cruise lines do a fantastic job on their own. They put a lot of money into the market, and we always look at what we call, quality. Are they going to spend more time in Anchorage? Yeah, Jack looks like he's just dying to say something.
This is going to be my one data point that I trot out every time. Before all of this, prior to the pandemic, if you looked at the room nights consumed in Anchorage hotels, about 60% of the room nights that were being consumed were consumed by independent travel. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect between the public perception that everything is cruise or was cruise prior to the pandemic.
When was that, Jeff? What year?
2019, prior to
2019,
Okay,
and prior to that, you could average it across a couple of years, but pre-pandemic, a good chunk, more than half of what we had as far as room nights went was independent travelers. And that's nights stayed in a hotel rather than people. So it could be that the independent traveler also stays a different way that is more valuable if you're a hotelier.
Do you know what it is now?
Well, last year we had no.
Yeah, it was
cruise-
100%
100,
independent traveler last year.
Yeah, no cruise passengers, and we had a fantastic year, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch, just I hear people coming, and I should have said at the start, we have a special group in the building who might just come in and wave. We want them to see this room setup. It's a group of meeting planners. David's department is hosting them this week. We generally have what we call a FAM, familiarization tour, and now I don't hear him, over the week of the Iditarod, because it's a fantastic week to bring people to Anchorage, make sure they have a great time. So this is a group of meeting planners, some of whom are just what we call the top of the funnel, like maybe thinking about Anchorage. They all have meetings that would fit in our community very well. Some are mid-funnel, where they're up here on what we call a site visit, because they're close to making a decision and they just have a couple of questions about Anchorage. You know, sometimes you have to see it to believe it. And then there's a couple of people who we say are at the bottom of the funnel who've actually already booked a meeting, and they're coming up to take a look at all of our venues and to make, sign some final contracts. So what David's passing around, and I'm sorry, Assemblymember Kennedy, we can send you a copy of this after, is a list of these special guests that are in town this week and the type of business they represent, the economic impact. Generally, we do 3 of these meeting planner FAMs a year, and we're just growing again. So, we didn't have a couple during 2020, and then they've been a little bit smaller. Excuse me. Sometimes we've had either 5 to 10 meeting planners on our FAMs. So this time it's a little bit smaller, but some of these meetings are really fantastic meetings for us and will bring a lot of economic impact. And then I think he also provided a FAM report from 2003
to 21.
Yes, so we can go back and track for every FAM person that we've hosted, what percentage of business came, or for every FAM group that we've hosted, what percentage of people actually booked and eventually came. So in this group that you'll see today, we have business that's coming as early as this fall and business that might be as late as 2024, 2025, 2026. And that's just the long-term nature. But we decided to be very opportunistic with this group in the building. And there they are. Maybe we'll just wave as they go by and welcome. Hello. Hello. You can just wave. So what they'll experience this week is, thank you. They'll see more hotel rooms than you can imagine. They site tour many hotels, and they'll see a junior suite, a king suite, a normal room, a this, a that. They'll, obviously touring this, they'll tour the museum, the Alaska Native Heritage Center, any other meeting venues. They'll see Alyeska, they'll experience the train, and they'll meet many of our local businesses who service conventions. And so when we talk about FAMs and when we talk about how we spend, whether it's ARPA funds or our normal marketing funds through the bed tax, this is one of those programs that maybe doesn't have instant return, but the meetings that we'll get this year, the meetings we'll get next year, or maybe from an effort like this 5-10 years ago. So
Shelley just had a group book that she met her first year with Visit Anchorage. She's been with us 17 years. So it was 17 years later that we got the meeting, but others, it's within 6 months. And the other thing that I would add is that the typical conversion for FAM participation goes to meeting is somewhere in the ballpark of 10-12%. So we're almost 3 times the national average.
wow.
Once we bring people to Alaska. And I just think that speaks of Alaska as to what it takes for people to understand it and to do it well. But we have a group here that's Ducks Unlimited. It's been here. They don't repeat destinations. They've been here 3 times.
Wow.
It's a very big piece of business. We were kind of worried that they would outgrow us. And
Well,
another
3
group.
times, that means
Yeah.
other places they're going and saying, oh, yeah, this is nice. If they
Right.
come here, they want to do
come
it
back.
here.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of ducks.
And a lot of hunters.
And they're a group that builds.
Right, yeah, that group, it definitely makes sense, but just in general,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And they're a group that invests in their chosen destinations. They preserve wetlands and
Yeah,
build walking paths and so forth. There's one down in Portage that they put in. So, and then Go West is here as well. They were here in 2000. Took us 3 years to convince them. A lot of work. Once they committed, their attendance, and this is frequently the case, jumped about 20%, 30%, I think. And in 2016, they were like, we want to come back in 5 years. And we said, well, we just finished this conference.
I don't know if you've heard the term revenge travel yet, but people are willing to go bigger and to spend more because they're just tired of not traveling. And I think that we're benefiting from revenge travel right now. So apparently that's a new term to some of you. We expect 2021 bed taxes and to be above $30 million, which is really, really close to past highs. It's almost 2.5 times what was collected in 2020 and represents 97% of 2019. So, I mean, that's a statistic that I think we can all be excited about. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail, just one example, and then I promise we'll move on from the marketing examples. But I've mentioned the neighborhood guide a couple of times and the importance of content development and the staff time that you allowed us through the ARPA grant to develop more content. So using the ARPA marketing funds, we were able to contract with Lonely Planet to publish a winter-focused article. So it was an advertorial. We had to pay for it, but it was a great article on winter. But by working with them and being able to work with them on a paid basis, we have received a lot of unpaid residual benefits. As an example, while we were working with them on that paid winter content, our communications staff talked quite a bit about the new neighborhood guide. And as a result, we got a bonus article in there that we didn't pay for, all about the best Anchorage neighborhoods. And that content was repurposed in Lonely Planet. And then subsequent to that, now there's another bonus article, again in Lonely Planet, about the best Anchorage parks. And that also came directly from the neighborhood guide. So the benefits will continue well beyond 2021 of those ARPA funds. So current status, here's our outlook for 2022. On the positive side, domestic travel generally is at a very high point. I mentioned revenge travel. People are just ready to travel and they're ready to spend money on travel. And Alaska and Anchorage remains at a point where we're offering what people are looking for, the outdoor destination, wide open spaces, something a little bit exotic. Our local gains continue to be solid. I talk about hotel revenues in 2021. Through January, hotel demand has remained very high and above prior years. So we're excited about that. And talking at our board retreat last week, trying to get an indication from airlines, hotels, the railroad, all the people who do really early bookings. Optimism is very, very high that we're going to have a banner summer season for sure. The marketing and promotions work is strong, and we have a very strong marketing and promotions budget going into 2022. A lot of that is because we did not anticipate what the bed taxes would be last year. And so that all came in very late in the year after third quarter. And so we were able to put that on top of our normal budgeting process, the funds that, we had a pretty conservative expense budget last year, just not knowing what was going to happen. Return of the Cross Gulf cruise, we're hopeful. The cruise lines are ready to go. There's a little bit of reticence, concern about Canadian rules still, and our Cross Gulf cruises relies on visitors being able to get into Canada and feeling comfortable doing that. But the cruise lines are pretty positive at this point as well. And so all of this great news and all of this bookings, the industry still feels a little bit tenuous, just so much uncertainty. And I don't think that's probably any different than any other business out there that's kind of done the ups and downs. Some of the significant and wide-reaching challenges, and that's where I was really excited to see everything on your new day for Anchorage. Jobs, workforce, really facing a shortage of workers right now, and I think some of our businesses are seeing, all of this great news, and they're going to be busier than ever. And we want to make sure that we do a good job servicing the visitors who come. And so workforce is top of line for our industry right now. So any funding that you can, work towards workforce development, it's a short-term problem, but it's also a long-term problem. Supply issues continue to be a concern. Yeah,
I have a question. I don't know, should we do questions as we go or wait till the end? What's your preference?
Whatever your preference is, Julie.
Now's great.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
I have a workforce question. Yeah. Obviously, on our side, we're going to be working on things like affordable housing, childcare, the things we know limit people being in this market. One thing that we don't have direct control over, but I wonder if your organization, I'm sure you're tracking sort of J1 visas and those kind of work visas. What are the status of those programs? And to what degree are we going to be able to have those kind of workers in Alaska in 2022?
So my understanding, and this is talking to some of our larger employers who've traditionally really relied on the J1 visas, there are nationwide expected to be fewer than we've had in the past, due to issues, not even under our national control, but some of the countries that send J1s, it's the process to get that visa and the interviews required, it's a little bit more difficult now. So we're expecting significantly fewer J1s nationwide. And it's more competitive than ever. And I've heard from people who've been trying to hire that it's really not going to be a great source for tourism. Like, I think the commercial fishing industry has had some success, but even there, they're not having the numbers that they've had in the past. So that is definitely a significant part of our workforce development woes right now. Yeah. And,
No, I was just trying to think what, if anything, we can do about it. It might just be something that's totally sort of exogenous, that it's something that impacts us that we really can't control, right? I mean, I lived in the former Soviet Union. I know a number of people did work and travel programs in the United States. Ukraine was a major source of folks, and obviously they're not coming. And so, yeah, I'm not sure what the solution. I mean, I guess this might be later on, but do you have any ideas for other things that we could do to help you find that workforce?
Actually, I was going to say, when I say workforce development, I'm 100% in agreement. You went right to childcare and affordable housing. Anything that you can do to help on those fronts will be critical. And that's what we're here. I mean, I think the example from one of our board members last week, what they're saying is they're getting about 50% of the number of applicants that they used to have. And they used to have fewer jobs to fill because year after year, they'd get, 70, 80% returning employees. After 2 years not operating, they don't even have that base, and now they're not getting applicants. And so that's a concern. And what I think is also hindering us, the example given was, it used to be that people would apply, they'd be excited about Alaska, cool job, right? But now they're looking at the housing costs, they're looking at the cost of getting up here and getting back home. And now their local Subway store right around the corner is offering $18 an hour.
Sure.
It used to be that we offered the coolness, and our wage was a bit above what they could make by just staying at home. And that's not, the wages outside have come up, and so we still have the cool factor, but we don't have you're going to return home with more money than had you stayed at home. And so that's a difficult thing that the industry is struggling with, and housing is a good part of that equation.
Is there, so we probably won't be able to build a lot of housing this summer for those workers.
And like I said, we're looking, like, this summer's a concern, but long-term's a concern.
One idea, I think it was Ms. Quinn Davidson had it, I think it was someone else, about trying to, we just described like the combination of wage and coolness factor, and everybody knows that, but has experienced that. But is there anything we could do to sort of offer some kind of incentive, economic incentive, as a portion of our money to help recruit people this summer? I mean, I don't know how practically that could be structured.
Right. So a couple of ideas off the top of my head, and I love the question, so I might get back to you after this meeting too. Identifying, so there's some hotels in Anchorage that may not open this summer, and if there was a way that you could help subsidize workforce staying in properties like that, that would be something. If we could figure out how to make it work within the ARPA structure, or that would be helpful. Of course, it's a handful of employees, but at this point, 50, 100, 150 rooms could help and could be very attractive to inviting more people up. So that's off the top of my head. I'm looking down, just Cathy. We've got other creative people in this room.
One of the other board members suggested that as an incentive for getting workers who will be working downtown, offer free parking for them. So again, if there was a program where, different businesses could say, I'm offering this incentive because they know they can get funding to offset that, that might be something that would be helpful, because parking downtown can be high if you're not at a really high wage. So.
And for years, Holland America offered a cruise after two seasons. Yeah, but it had to be 800 hours, so 400 hours in a season. Angie and I both know that. And so something where if people work the entire season, then they got a reimbursement for their airfare would be a way of incentive, taking away that cost at the end of the season. So this type of an incentive would be very helpful, I think.
And we could market that.
I was gonna say, we try to work out a deal with the airlines to give discounts to get them here in the first place or something, you know.
Yeah.
Can I ask, kind of funny with.
Yeah, it's okay. We can be informal.
Okay.
This is the next one.
Sorry about that. So who is the demographic that we're looking at? Like you're saying round trip airfare, that's obviously people who are coming and then heading back. What about people who are working, who live here? And so can you describe, do you understand who those folks are who work in the tourism industry? And probably it depends on what type of business, and how we could target, and it doesn't have to be today, but I think we're all really interested in like, how do we reach different groups, whether they be out of state or in state?
Yeah, and in state, obviously, a better, shouldn't say a better employee, but they come with a knowledge base of what's there to do and what's it like to be in the wind, all those questions that visitors like to ask when they're not confronted. Got to pick better words, when they're engaged with one of our tourism employees. So I think there's there's obviously a lot of groups, but certainly college kids who are at home for summer, depending on the job, washing buses, cleaning motor coaches after they've been used, front desk of hotels, baggage folks, but teachers, again, people who have the summer off and they're maybe looking for something kind of fun or a little extra income. To some degree seniors, but to a lesser degree. But folks who maybe have other things going on in winter and are looking for, and I'm talking about the frontline part-time jobs. But there's really great year-round jobs in the industry right now that are unfilled too. But the tsunami that we're seeing right now is for the frontline employees. And
the other piece that I think going local is that the mind shift has changed a bit. People want more time off. When I started in the industry, I worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, got a few days off, and then I came back and I did it. And they just don't want to do that. They want, a week-long tour and then maybe a week off. And so what I'm finding I'm having to do is really piecemeal a large group of people to make everyone happy. It's not about the money. So they're like, yeah, I really want to be in tourism because it's fun, but I'm not going to kill myself for you. So you need more people to do the jobs that we have because they just don't want to work as much. They want to have a life. So.
And we've had a lot of success over the years when I was at Gray Line, but also in other is people reentering the workforce after their kids reach a certain age, and maybe they feel a little rusty with their skill set. And tourism is very welcoming, and it's a fun industry. It attracts, really fun people. And so, and going back to the earlier where people are flying in, I can't tell you how many people came up here for, a summer job and never left, it's a way of getting the right people coming to Alaska and, and staying here, and reversing that negative, experience that we're losing people, that we'd like to attract. So.
Maybe we need to have a tourism is still fun type thing. Because honestly, last year, a lot of people worked more than they've ever worked. And so I know when I'm bringing back people, they're like, I don't want to do what we did last year. Like, I don't either. But, when it comes to, so kind of that, this is a fun job. It normally is a really fun job.
Do you have a sense for what the stats are on just sort of overall tourism jobs? How many people are here? And you could even say summer, if that's what we're looking at. How many people live here versus how many people you're bringing in? Because I think that would change sort of any incentives or things that we could do.
So it used to be, so again, pre-pandemic, I can tell you, we haven't had the luxury of that kind of research in the last couple of years, but if I recall, I want to say it was 82% statewide industry workers were Alaskans.
82.
82.
Wow.
We were when you looked at all of the industries, we were, I think, second highest. So we work hard. but there's a lot of need for outs, and now even those workers are not necessarily making themselves available. So, yeah.
Say really treating this as an opportunity to solve for the immediate need with locals, college kids, retirees now, but also with an eye towards how do we build out programs for workforce development and training that are Alaska first. So kind of, we need a microwave solution, but we also need the slow cooker solution. Both of those things need to happen, and we shouldn't necessarily do one without, at the detriment of doing the longer term work as well.
Well, if as time is going on, you all think of specific, like, here's what would help with this group of people, here's what help, I mean, it's the problem obviously everyone's trying to solve, but, you know, we are about to be in a position to have some more funding, and I think the workforce shortage is one of the biggest problems facing our city. So anyway, think about it.
I think also, you know, when we think about industries we want to assist, and all industries were impacted and everyone understands that, but I think there is still a perception in the public that your industry in particular got slaughtered in 2020. And there's still a lot of sympathy for your industry and being on the comeback. And so I think that helps us sell things, frankly, or not sell things, but it helps us work with our community to direct things towards you. And I think also what you said about, you know, this is a short-term immediate problem, but simultaneously we can get through this little hump. This is, you know, over this problem, you guys are one of our shining stars when it comes to what is Alaska going to do in the future? What is our long-term economy going to look like? And we know in Anchorage and Alaska as a whole, the outdoor economy, the visitor industry is just very, very much at the top. And so I think there's a lot of eagerness on the Assembly to work with you.
And I should have started this whole program by saying we have felt so supported by the Assembly, and thank you very much to each of you, because we really did feel supported at, you know, our lowest times, and now as we're looking to better times, we still feel that support, and we very, very, very much appreciate it. And I mean, that's coming from us as the organization, but I think the industry as a whole recognizes that. So thank you. So the only last part, and we've jumped all over, but I did, one of the things when I was talking to Jason in setting up this meeting, you know, he did want us to talk about looking at the next disbursement of ARPA funds. And truly, I wasn't lying when I said our list is very largely represented by this list. There are a couple other things, though, that we had on our list. Town square implementation. It just seems that we've talked about that so long. Or any tourism, any resident infrastructure, particularly in the downtown area, would be appreciated. I think seeing things happen downtown just provides a really lift for everybody in our community. And so we'll put a plug in for that. Trails work was definitely on our list, as we know it's good for residents, but also something that we very actively market, and outdoor recreation is certainly on the list of our visitors. I wanted to also mention the Cultural Pillars grants that you guys funded. Those were super important, and I was talking with the Performing Arts Center this morning, trying to get a sense of where they think they are. There, I would say there's two parts of our industry that are still lagging a bit. One would be, you know, the hospitality. The restaurants still are having a more difficult time than others, and particularly any of those that really rely on performing arts. So, you know, the places that would hold little Humpies is a good example with their stage. Places where people gather, including the Performing Arts Center. I know that they're starting to have more and more events, but attendance is still not, even at those events, is still lagging a little bit. And then likewise, same story with our meetings and conventions. While we're actively selling and we're selling into future years, 2020, 2021, and currently meetings are coming back slowly, but the attendance still isn't quite there. And so those are the two parts of our industry that I think are still, will be a couple of years behind, say, the leisure travel, behind the cruise travel. So just put a plug in for the cultural pillars. I think that those were really smart grants that you made in the past and very helpful. We also talked a bit at our board retreat just about the transit needs. And I don't know what the rules around the ARPA funding is for improving, but, you know, circulator, buses, other ways to help the flow of visitors and residents through our community and maybe, you know, lessen the congestion on our roads. So transit is something that's important to our industry. And then I'll just say workforce development one more time. So I think that kind of in a very circular back and forth zigzag way covered what we wanted to talk about. And I don't know if there's other questions or comments. Again, just very appreciative. And I know, at least I think I understood that a good portion of the next disbursement of ARPA funding may go to homelessness, and we're very supportive of that. That obviously is a need in our community. And
That's news to us.
Yeah.
oh, I thought I'd heard that somewhere. Never mind
As
then.
the appropriators of those funds. We've
That's
not
news.
heard about that.
I thought I'd heard that from somewhere. So
But
we are very supportive of all of your efforts towards homelessness. It's a concern for our industry as it is for all of the residents. So.
When you say transit, Julie, are you talking, and I think all of us would support as well, we're in the same boat,
Yeah.
but when you say transit, are you thinking like a little bus that just runs downtown that people can hop on and off of? I mean, it seems like we could have some bus that runs through town at hotspots that just circulates and.
This is this is a topic for
Yeah,
me.
David.
So last year when we knew there wasn't going to be the rental vehicles available, that the Alaska Zoo, the Alaska Botanical Garden, and Alaska Native Heritage Center simply did not have the funding or the staff to operate their shuttles. I really pitched that all of them would, you know, charter a coach from Premier daily, like on a 1.5 hour loop,
Right.
and just deliver people. But that just seemed, that gets expensive really quick. This next year's not gonna be any better as far as rental cars. It won't, any additional cars that they're able to find will be outclipped by so much demand between both the cruise and the independent travel that has found Alaska. So it is definitely an issue. And if people come here and they can't go places and they can't, then it becomes a negative experience. So if there's a way to, and we had a very robust shuttle system in years previous, but you need 3 drivers, you know, full-time drivers to give a minimal amount of shuttle service in an 8-hour day over an entire week. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I ask, is the primary challenge getting from like the airport to downtown, or is it from getting from downtown to like the Native Heritage Center? Which would you say is the bigger, if we were to try to dedicate some kind of route, which of those you think is the bigger
It would
problem?
be transportation to attractions like the Alaska Zoo.
Like to hiking, didn't you used to have a shuttle that would going out?
Yeah, and I believe the flat top shuttle is still operating and doing, but that's a 12 passenger van.
One thing,
You know, so and there's an issue with parking, you know, to access the trailheads. There just is no place to park for the amount of demand for the peak hours that people, you
And
know.
the shuttle is great because then people stay downtown, they walk around downtown, they eat downtown, which obviously there's positives to that, and then they get to see all these things. Like, it's not just that they don't, it's good for us too.
Yeah.
Wow, I think Felix is sorry.
Yeah, thanks. So I can tell you firsthand regarding the vehicles. It is a tough market out there. So in January, my parents called in to get a vehicle. They were able to get one, but they were trying to shop, see if they can get something cheaper. Well, 2 weeks later, there was no vehicles left on the market. So
For the summer?
Yeah, for the summer. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And that was in January, right? No vehicles left.
Wow.
So it's been crazy. So, you know, regarding, I like the idea of shuttles, but just like with workforce issues with tourism industry, there's a huge workforce issue with drivers. I mean, we saw that with the school district. We're seeing that with People Mover. So that's, I think, going to be another issue to tackle outside of just, you know, finding the shuttles. How do we actually get the drivers for that? But I do think that's an interesting short-term fix. Is, you know, if there's any way that we can invest in shuttles, I like that idea.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be interesting to look at sort of long-term solutions. I know there are a lot of course, bigger cities with more money that have some really good solutions when it comes to how to get from point A to point B. Of course, that requires a lot of dollars, but with the infrastructure money coming in, if there's any opportunities for that, I think that would be something to explore.
I just wanted to add, you know, Felix, you mentioned that about the lack of availability of vehicles. And last summer, there was someone who got a hold of a U-Haul. They couldn't get a vehicle. And apparently, we're heading up to either go to the Rabbit Lakes trailhead, and if you go up Upper Yarmouth County Road, and then there's that wonderful new trail up to Flat Top, which I think is just great. Yeah, especially for folks who are out of town. It has those nice switchbacks. But one of my constituents like flagged him down. Like, there's no way, you know, you're going to be able to turn around. So anyway, when you said that, it reminded me of that, and I think that's what a lovely idea. You know, to pursue shuttles or some kind of circuit. Yeah, we have so much. I mean, right here.
Well, and you get these people. I'm sure you guys have this all the time, but you know, I have friends coming up. They're like, "Oh, we're going to spend 3 days in Homer, 3 days in Seward, and 1 night in Anchorage." I'm like, no offense to Seward, but 3 days in Seward? Like, what are you going to do there? You know, I shouldn't, we're being recorded, but you know, there's a lot to do in Anchorage. There's so many restaurants. There's so many places to hike.
But they have a free shuttle in Seward.
They do.
They do.
And it's walkable and small.
town.
And so of course I said, oh no, stay 2 nights in Seward, 2 nights here. There's things to do. But yeah, it's like unless there's an easy way to get around, people just don't seem to know that.
That's the difference of Anchorage as a gateway, which we are not, or a base camp, which we are. And that's that's what we try to emphasize in all of our marketing. Like, 1 day is not enough. And, you know, we hear, well, Anchorage is just the city of Alaska. And it's like, you know what, if you look at everything that's iconic about Alaska, glaciers, wildlife, it's right here in the big city. But so that's a perception that we're always overcoming.
As far as the shuttle bus type situation is concerned, you know, a decade or more ago, maybe 15 years ago, Denver closed down one of their streets downtown and didn't allow traffic on it, and then they've got a bus that runs from one end to the other. And it increased business, and restaurants and shops opened up in that whole corridor, and has created a whole new downtown, so to speak. And so it definitely can work.
Yeah, I agree. And we love the outdoor dining that popped up everywhere during the pandemic. One bright spot.
Well, we talked about. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's one of the things that we've been talking about and are hoping to help move forward is expanding outdoor dining.
That's one of the kind of things you can do, hopefully without spending much money. I mean, it's just we need to remove some of these roadblocks. Some of it's in state law, unfortunately, particularly with the alcohol.
Right.
But to the degree to which we can remove roadblocks, we certainly want to.
And I just wanted to make a quick comment too about this. You know, with the Open Meetings Act, there are only 3 of us who work together initially. To have more requires a publicly noticed meeting like this. And so I know Felix and Pete, you know, you haven't had an opportunity to go through some of this. And the intent is it's a starting point where we've
identified some categories of actions and ideas that have come up over time, that we've heard from all of you, that we've heard from other assembly members, and through our conversations too about our priorities. So it's something that, you know, we're hoping to get more input from meetings like this and from other members. So just so don't want anyone to feel left out. I know Crystal's on the phone too.
Yeah, it's not an exhaustive list.
No.
I didn't hear about it until the local news, so.
Well.
So on the the idea of the shuttle, like Austin said about Forest 2 and others about coming forward with ideas for what you'd like to see in terms of ARPA spend or ways we can help. Is there anything, any feedback you need from us or?
No, I don't think so, and we'll continue the conversation maybe through email, through the clerk's office and that system. Take some of your comments and some of these ideas and expand on them, and continue just sharing information on what we're seeing moving forward. As I said, there's so much positive news out there, and yet we're all still a little bit hesitant. I think the roller coaster ride that we've been on has made us a little bit cautious.
Understandably so.
Has the state come back into the tourism arena?
Yes, yes, kind of. So yes, they have, and they and Cathy sits on the statewide marketing committee. I sit on the statewide board, and in the governor's budget that is being considered right now. So for FY23, there's $5 million in the governor's budget for tourism marketing. It's not state funding, but it's still funding. So he's looking at ARPA funding as well. We would probably prefer to be in the state budget so that the following year is not lost.
Right.
But $5 million for marketing is terrific at the statewide level. They certainly could use more, but we're grateful to have been included.
When I think the EDA funding that they've been able to receive as well,
Yeah.
the problem they had with the EDA funding, which is just over, I think it's around 10.5 million, but in order to implement those, they had to go out to bid. So none of that money is in the market until likely April. And so they're still working through that RFP process to get a researcher on board, a new advertising firm on board, PR. So the timing, they've got money, but they can't spend it until they continue the RFP process. So that really put us, because we rely on their program as well for leads that people want to come to the state, and then we swoop in and say, if you're coming to the state, come to Anchorage. So there's a little delay this year, and we're working through it. We've we weighted our front end a little bit heavier because of that timing.
Not to overlook the winter opportunities, but this makes me really excited for summer.
Yes.
I'm always very excited for summer.
Anybody else have any questions or?
Madam Chair, I just noticed, I was texted by Ms. Zolotel. I don't know if we acknowledged that she was on the team.
Oh, I did not know that she was on.
I feel like she was on for part of the time. She had texted me about, with regard to the homelessness, that the ARPA rules actually do not allow it to be spent on congregate shelter. So
Okay.
there might be other ways we could use it for homelessness, but another shelter is not one of them.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just mention that I don't know if you're aware of Northern Pacific Airways. They're looking at starting in late August, which would be very timely from the Asia markets. They would have direct flights from Narita and hopefully connecting through to Incheon and as far as like Harbin. They're using the Iceland Air model where they would all fly to Anchorage, clear, and then be able to connect through to the western states, and people could stay a week in Anchorage. And that has been, they've increased, this model has increased visitation to Iceland by about 500%.
Yeah.
So if this is successful, and we're hoping it is,
It's a good winter market.
yeah, it's a year-round prospect of the kinds of travelers that we would really love to see back, you know, supporting all of our tourism businesses and our community, so.
And so with that model, and I heard about the just wild success of it in Iceland, and it's really exciting because it sounds like something that could really work here, where people maybe even only have like 3 days even to, and have like a
One
mini-
day, yeah, even,
a
Take
mini
whatever.
vacation.
yeah.
So are you all working with folks like to line up packages, you know, for people then who for like 3 days or whatever?
Yeah, and we, so we've had various international presence, depending on, you know, Australia, UK have always been really strong markets. Strong interest from Asian markets, and we've kept limited presence in our international markets throughout the pandemic, but we're at the point where we're able to increase that, and the Asian market certainly is a big focus for us. And so we just instituted, or not institute, we just added money to our budget to really get back into our international market starting third quarter. And we're excited to be able to do that, particularly with the prospect from Pacific Northern.
Is that Pacific Northern?
Raven,
Raven.
That's just something, oh,
Pacific Northern Airways,
Northern Pacific.
Northern, oh, I'm sorry,
sorry.
yeah, Northern Pacific, yes.
Raven became Northern Pacific.
Yeah.
Yes, they're kind of operating a sister company.
Oh,
In the same way Horizon operated under
Got it.
Alaska Airlines.
Got it.
They're the regional, and then there's the larger. So
Oh.
they're still purchasing planes, they're beginning to
Okay.
paint the livery.
And they're considering
Yeah,
using
they're-
Anchorage as a hub, that's not, or whatever the
They're
right.
trying to
term is,
get,
that's
they're
not-
at the point of getting FAA regulatory
Oh, okay, that's
permissions now. So, I mean,
They're serious about it.
they're serious, yeah,
Wow, that is really exciting.
yeah.
I would say just like moving forward from this, if there are specific things like the shuttle, but like, you know, this is what we could do and this is how much it would cost and this is what it would lead to. If there are specific things like that, let us know, because I think we're starting to think about how do we, really focus on the industries that need it. And or if there are specific workforce things, you know, if you were to do this sort of incentive and we need $500,000 to do it or whatever it is, this would be the outcome. And I mean, I think we're all interested in hearing
Definitely.
those ideas.
I think particularly as established organizations who do this kind of workforce development for a living come to you with ideas, whether it be a
Yeah.
KCC or a university or a 9-star or a CITC. Those are the kind of organizations that we would look to, because our strength is as marketers, and this workforce development stuff is you know, ramping up for us. Somebody else has figured out how to do this for Alaskans, and they figured it out a long time ago.
That's a great point.
How involved are you all with the work that AEDC is doing on workforce development?
We work with AEDC all the time and very supportive of their efforts. Like Bill and I are probably, like, for a while there, I felt like we were tied at the hip. Now I probably see him once or twice a week. But yes, we're very supportive, and we've expanded that into the chamber and us, and
Well,
and
particularly in the last couple of months, the outreach that we've done to places like King Career Center and UA through their alumni and student career services, APU. Like, we're trying to plug into as many of those places as exist currently as we can, because we need those partnerships. But those do tend to be longer term opportunities as well. We're not going to solve this summer with those immediately.
We also, I think we have a work session scheduled with them, but we funded maybe them too, but maybe $3 million at the university. So I can't remember the exact number, but quite high for workforce development programs. So we're looking forward to hearing from them. Is that working? What else do we need to do? So that's a good reminder.
I know, we're wrapping up, but I should also share that the private sector has indeed stepped up into the workforce needs. Holland America Princess is putting $300,000 towards a campaign to attract workforce to Alaska. Obviously, they have their own needs, but the program is not just for them. They're attracting workforce that anybody in the industry hopefully can have access to and reach and try to sell on their own business. So that, I mean, that was very good news. And so there are efforts out there outside of Alaska, inside of Alaska. The Alaska Travel Industry Association board has also looked at a significant investment in in-state marketing to attract workers as well. So private industry is stepping forward to help resolve the immediate, but hopefully it's successful and we all need to just tie into that. So
Is that Sarah Leonard?
Sarah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the information and the discussion and the work that you're doing too. And we're looking forward to hearing more and moving forward on some of these ideas.
And just fun to brainstorm too, like you can just tell how much you guys are all really committed to this work and like care, you know, I mean. It's really
We're
fun.
lucky to get to do what we do, even during tough times. We feel fortunate, so thank you.
And I would just add to go back to your comment, Forrest, about some empathy for the industry now. I would say too that it just seems like in Anchorage, maybe in Alaska, there is a lot of pride about bringing people here, and I think that probably people identify really personally, with your mission and want to solve some of these problems too that prevent people from being able to see, this beautiful place to live. So, yeah.
And 130, the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Takes a little pressure off of us as tour guides.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I suppose we should officially adjourn. And thank you again.
Thank you all for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good time.
Jack, what was on your very last slide? Did it say something like we're expecting